Hi there, and welcome back to Modern World History. Today we're going to continue on our discussion about the Reformation and look at England's Reformation. So we already talked about Martin Luther and how he had kind of helped spearhead the Reformation in Germany, where you got these Protestant princes who start to turn their backs on the Catholic Church. And some of these did it because of their devout belief in the Catholic Church being corrupt and worldly. And others did it for political gain. And then others remained loyal to the Catholic Church in Germany. We're going to see where other people over time began to make changes to how they think Christianity should work as well. And so today we're going to focus on England's Reformation. And we're really looking at this guy right here, okay? And he is Henry VIII. And he is a devout Catholic. He is also incredibly anti-Martin Luther. He's anti-Martin Luther. He is not for the Reformation in Germany. He thinks that's just a terrible idea to break tradition with the Catholic Church. And so, unfortunately though, Henry needed a male heir. And so he's really not thinking about religion at the moment. He's just thinking, wow, this is stupid what Martin Luther's doing, but my goal is I need to secure my family line so that I can have a son who can one day be the great king of England. And so he is married to Katherine of Aragon. And Katherine of Aragon is, she's kind of getting a little old, and he had not had any male sons. And so she's too old for kids. He needs to get a divorce. And so he goes and he's like, I want to divorce Katherine and get remarried so I can continue to have male heirs. Well, here's the problem is that, remember this guy Charles V we were just talking about, the Holy Roman Emperor? Okay. Now, he's also just an important like a leading political figure in Europe anyway, with a huge amount of power and influence in far more places than just Germany. But he's also a devout Catholic, a fierce defender of Catholicism. And so the Pope, in effort to stay on Charles's good side, is like, heck no, there's no way we're going to grant this divorce to Henry VIII. And so we're not going to get on the bad side of Charles V, no matter what we do. And that's probably a smart thing for him. So the solution, according to Henry VIII, is we're going to get Parliament to pass a law that lets Henry grant himself a divorce. So what Henry was looking for is he was looking for a legitimacy. He couldn't just leave his wife and marry someone else, because then his son wouldn't be legitimate. Wouldn't be the legitimate heir. He'd be the bastard son, which would literally mean that he was born out of wedlock and was not a legitimate heir. So this is what Henry's trying to do. He ends up having Parliament create a law known as the Act of Supremacy, which in effect gives Henry the ability to be the head of the church in England. So listen, Henry doesn't need to be the head of the church, period. He doesn't need to be the head of all Christianity. He just wants to be able to control what the church is able to do in England, so that he will be essentially the Pope there and will have all the authority to say that his divorce is legal. So he can make his divorce legal as religious head. That's what he's trying to do. So he's like, wow, this is a smart way of getting my job done. And so he ends up divorcing Katherine of Aragon, and he takes a new wife after that. Now, here's the thing too, is that before he divorced Katherine, he ended up having a daughter. Remember, he didn't have any male heirs, but he had Mary. And Mary, he was like, there's never been a female monarch before. We don't think that Mary's going to be taken seriously as queen. So there's no way we're going to do this. We need a son. And so he marries wife number 2, Anne Boleyn. Okay? And there's been movies made about this and all that. And Anne was younger and all this. She gave birth to Elizabeth. Now, this is going to be the Elizabeth I, the monarch that we've heard so much about. And she's going to be fantastic. But first, there's a whole lot of other drama that goes on here. And Anne Boleyn eventually gets beheaded for an affair. His next wife number 3, is going to be Jane Seymour. and she ends up giving birth to a son named Edward. And here's the thing, though, man, he's so happy. He loved Jane Seymour more than any of the other wives. Jane Seymour was his favorite, right? She gave birth to the son he'd been wanting all this time, and then she died from complications. So, sad day for Henry VIII. That's how Jane Seymour met her demise. And so he ends up taking a fourth wife. And he did not have any children with Anne of Cleves. In fact, he had the marriage annulled, which meant that it wasn't like, when people have a marriage annulled, it's kind of like divorce, except usually the marriage doesn't really get off to a good start. And so they just are like, maybe we thought this through the wrong way. Let's go and get it undone. And here's the problem. Remember my boy Hans Holbein? Well, Hans Holbein was Henry VIII's personal artist that did all of his portraits and all this. And in fact, this picture up here, this is a Hans Holbein painting. I hope I'm going to get this spelled right. I for E, it always gets me mixed up. But Hans Holbein was the guy who paints for Henry VIII, and he went and painted a portrait of Anne of Cleves. And he's like, yeah, Anne of Cleves is all right. But then when she got back to England, he thought, hey, she looks like a horse. And so he did not want to stay with Anne of Cleves. So he annulled that marriage, and then he has Katherine Howard. Katherine Howard had no children and was also younger and was also beheaded for adultery. And then finally, wife number 6, Katherine Parr. She's there's no children here, and really she outlived Henry. So Henry died while being married to Katherine Parr. And Katherine Parr, in a lot of ways, was kind of like a caretaker for him. So more than like, I wouldn't really describe their relationship as much of a husband and wife as much as it would be more of a she's going to take care of him in his older age kind of relationship. Henry VI was the son of Edward VI was the son of Henry VIII. He does become king, but he's only a little boy. And he dies at 15 years old. So he doesn't live very long. Some of you watching this video are about 15. Could you imagine being the King of England? And could you imagine if people would take you seriously, especially if you're a sickly little kid? And so it turns out that the only two remaining heirs of the king, after all, was going to be Mary and Elizabeth. And it still gets even crazier here, because here's the problem, man. When you mess with the church and you dissolve a lifelong institution and create something new, it makes people uneasy. And Mary just happened to be super Catholic. Remember, her mother was Catherine of Aragon. She was related to Charles V, and she wanted to restore Catholicism, and so she did. Well, here's the thing: is that people had started to kind of get comfortable now with the new Protestant faith that the Church of England that was kind of established under Henry, and so this didn't make everyone happy. And Mary was devout, and she was pretty serious about her reinstitution of Catholic Christianity in England, and so she made a lot of people unhappy. In 1558, Mary dies, and then Elizabeth becomes queen. So when Elizabeth comes back, as fate would have it, she was the daughter of Anne Boleyn. She is going to restore Protestantism. So she comes back and says, okay, well, I don't like all this Catholic stuff. Apparently their family here didn't talk a whole lot about stuff. They were not on the same page. But Elizabeth restores Protestantism and establishes officially the Anglican Church, which is, the Church of England. Church of England. Okay. And this here is Elizabeth I, all right? And so really that's, I wouldn't say that's the end, but to date, England is still Protestant, going back to this period here, overwhelmingly. In fact, that's one of the big, divisive, cultural factors between, the Irish and the people of the United Kingdom right there. And so, to go ahead and kind of continue with the rest of the Reformation, well, how about this? We'll save this for another video. So we're going to be looking at the rest of the Reformation period, in our next video. And stay tuned. Thank you very much.